This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Bean, and here with me is Chris Kent. Hello, Mr. Kent.
Hello, sir.
Today, we are going to continue our discussion about creativity, and in this episode today, we're going to specifically talk about overcoming creative blocks. So, essentially, when you're trying to be creative or create something new, which I suppose would also be creative, and you're stuck. You have a block, a mental block or a physical block, a time block, something that you can't get past. And so we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what to do and how to continue to explore your exploration of being creative and kind of go around and unlock those blocks that you may be going through.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I think the first step there is identifying what we would call a creative block, or identifying that you are experiencing this kind of creative block. And sometimes that's a problem because those creative blocks can take many different forms. Sometimes we are the thing that is blocking us. Sometimes external things are blocking us. Sometimes other people are blocking us. Times of day, seasons. There's so many different ways that we can be blocked creatively. And so in order to overcome these creative blocks, we need to first identify what they are. And, we kind of talked about this in the previous episode. When you're sitting down to be creative, try to consciously eliminate distractions or things that could cause those blocks to start with, which is probably the preemptive step into overcoming these creative blocks. But again, if we are in situations where we find ourselves to be less creative or having trouble being creative, it's probably because we're being blocked by something. So you first need to figure out what it is that's blocking you, and the different ways that those blocks can show up in,
Speaking of that, creative blocks, I have found in the past that trying to wait for the time to be perfect, or waiting for the idea to be perfect, or waiting for me to have that new pen or new paper to write on, or whatever the thing is, for the perfect scenario all to come into play before I do anything. And sometimes you just got to do it. What do they say? The enemy of perfection is doing. That's not right at all. But yeah.
Try again. Try again later.
I'll try again later.
Be more creative about that one.
It'll come to me. But anyways, the idea or mindset that you have to wait for something to be perfect, or whether it's the idea, the timing, the atmosphere, whatever, just do it. In our quote unquote day jobs, we talk about perfectionism sometimes, and as humans, I don't think perfect is something that humans can be. Like, that's not a box that we can put ourselves in, and striving for that, or wanting that, or desiring that perfect whatever is just setting you up for failure. Can't be perfect. So don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait for the perfect, idea, whatever. Just do something. Put an idea down on paper, whether it's now, whatever. Like, the timing doesn't have to be, I had to wait. It's not. No, just do it. Just do it now. Don't wait for perfect. Perfect came and went and is gone, or is never going to happen again, or whatever, however you want to think about it. But for me, once I kind of understood that perfect was not a place that I can be, or that really probably humans can be, that helped tremendously, just with the mindset of not striving for perfect.
Right. Yeah, you can, I'm not sure the phrase quite that you were looking for there, but you could wait forever for things to be perfect and never end up doing the thing because they never were quite perfect. But you could also just do the thing in ideal or less than ideal or any kind of circumstance. And then at the end of the day, you can say you did the thing, rather than having never done the thing because you're waiting for so long. And we've talked before too about the idea that motivation follows action. And I think that might translate a little bit into creativity too. Sometimes you just got to start doing it. And then maybe that's the first block that we can talk about here, is just the block of fear of not the right circumstance, or, a better way to put that. But, that could be one of the blocks, is that you've been waiting for it to be perfect for so long. You never did it because things never ended up being perfect, which, by the way, they're never going to be perfect. You're never going to have that perfect time. It doesn't happen.
Well, and for me, this is kind of where that iterative testing that we've talked about a handful of times before really comes into play. I'll try it. Nope, that didn't work. Okay, fine. I did something. Did I fail? Probably. Was I fearful of failing? Yeah, maybe a little bit, but I did it. And that little bit that I did, while it was terrible, it was absolutely wrong and not helpful at all in terms of succeeding with whatever it is. It got me forward a little bit, and that would iterate and adjust and, okay, now do this one. And then, nope, that didn't work either. Iterate and test and then continue on down that path. And so, if you are stuck because your fear is you're afraid of failing, or you're waiting for that perfect. And I mean, really, at some point you have to ask yourself, are you waiting for X, Y, Z, A, B, C to happen? Is the fear lie in failing? Or are you just putting this off because it's not something you actually want to do, or it's not something, that is whatever, right? Just try something. Put something down on the paper. It could be wrong 10 ways to Sunday. Oh, well, do it anyways.
Yeah, how many times do you think about doing something, and again, the motivation follows action. Once you start doing a little bit, it helps you to get to doing more. So maybe you just need to start the act of doing it, and it's going to help to release those creative thoughts and creative ideas and put you better in that creative mindset. That's just one of those forms of the creative blocks we can come across. Other things, it can be, maybe even your self-doubt. So you just don't think that you're ready to make that thing, or you don't think you can create anything that's good, or you're afraid that what you create won't be perfect. So you're not waiting for the perfect time, but you want whatever it is to be perfect. Again, it's not going to happen. You're not going to create the perfect thing. Maybe you execute your idea very well, but it's not going to be perfect in every respect. So just get on with it, start working, and don't let that hold you back either. I think that's a few common, or maybe more prevalent, reasons why we become afraid to be creative. And other times, things that you don't necessarily realize, or they're external things. And so being able to identify that, again, is powerful. So taking some time to maybe research common creative blocks, or how other people have overcome the creative blocks, can be a helpful way for you to identify your own creative block, and then start to work your way through that, around that, over that, or completely crush whatever that thing might be.
And one way that helps to kind of overcome those creative blocks is to foster a creative mindset. Building a creative mindset is, I think, essential for overcoming those creative blocks. And what do I mean by fostering a creative mindset? Basically, you allow, in my own mind, in my own sense of this kind of my idea or mindset, is you allow yourself to be creative. It's like I'm sure the time has happened to you where you have thought about, a way to solve a problem. And before you allow yourself to speak whatever that potential problem-solving method is, you cut yourself down. No, that won't work. No, that doesn't work. No, this doesn't work. No. And you get lots of no's, and you're telling yourself no. Allow the creativeness to happen, right? Just say it. Okay, this. And then perhaps you are in an atmosphere where you can speak back and forth to somebody. Or maybe you're just talking out loud just because you're trying to work out whatever the problem is. But not to cut down any potential ideas before you have really thought them through. Now, I'm not saying that, you're going to think of, a bad idea, and obviously it's a bad idea because it won't work to fix whatever it is. But that doesn't mean that you don't give it any credit, or you don't give it the time to actually, perhaps fulfill its opportunity to see if it does work, right? How many times, have we been told that accidents are the reason that we have so many really creative things, because they were trying to make Y, and in the path of making Y, they failed, and they came up with X instead. And we love X because it's the best thing ever. Like what? Post-it notes. They weren't trying to make Post-it notes, but they made Post-it notes. It was an accident. It was a byproduct of whatever else it is that they were trying to make. So sometimes failure isn't necessarily, oh man, back to the drawing board. Maybe failure is just a pivot to allow something else to happen. So again, for me, that fostering a creative mindset is allowing those ideas and thoughts or whatever it is that you are experiencing to happen, and let them happen. Don't cut them down before they have a chance to grow and to foster into whatever else they might become.
Absolutely. Fostering that creative mindset doesn't mean that we're only looking for, only trying to do great creative things. Sometimes allowing yourself to make 5 bad things before you get to that one good thing is part of the process. And that fear of making something bad can hold you back from making anything at all. So allowing yourself to make 12 bad things before you get to the 13th thing that actually is pretty good, or making the 12 bad things and realizing, oh, the 7th one actually wasn't bad. It wasn't what I was trying to do, but it was something good. And fostering that mindset, allowing for that failure and accepting it as part of the process too. We talked last episode about, we defined it as nurturing your creativity. And these two things kind of go hand in hand, and kind of feeding into that, not just the positive side of it, but the other side of it as well, that could end up being something different than what you think. Talking about shifting your perspective and becoming more curious, or allowing yourself to be more curious as you're trying to still develop this creative mindset and foster this mindset. I think that's important in developing new strategies and finding new ways to be creative that maybe you wouldn't have thought of or wouldn't have experienced if you tried to hold yourself in that box of trying to make the perfect thing or make exactly what you wanted. Just let it happen. It's part of the flow of creativity, is you don't always know what's going to happen. Just let it run its course. I think that's important too.
I think that builds right into the next point, which is, perhaps coming up or thinking of ways to ignite inspiration, right? I'm sure, I'm not one of these people, but I'm sure that somebody can sit down with a empty notepad in front of them and their pen and a blank mind and take 2 or 3, 5 notes, and in 10 minutes they'll have a fabulously creative and diverse story of ideas. I am not one of those people. For me, the way I get inspiration for ideas or whatever it is Google image. I would just Google whatever the kind of idea is and see what other people have done, and then let my own creativeness put its own spin on that, or meld or mesh, combine together 4, 5, 8, 12 different ideas into one, and then try it. Another way, for me personally, is I will see what somebody else has done, and I will do my best to replicate that exactly. And in the process of replicating whatever it is exactly, that'll give me the idea it'll give me the opportunity to go through perhaps the process that they did. And in going through the process that they did, I can see some divergent paths that I have the opportunity to take if I so choose. And sometimes I will do it exactly the way I've seen it done. I find whatever it is I like. Pow, okay, great. I'm going to do that exactly or best I can. And then I'll do that. And then I'll say, okay, I'll live with that for, whatever it is. And okay, I like this part of it, but I don't like this. I like this part, but I don't like this. And I think I would do this differently. And then in the process of making that or building whatever it is, I get to interact with it how whatever that person did. I get to see a little bit of the building process that went into it. And then again, I can leave it as is, or I can use it and say, okay, this works, but those things don't work. Back to the drawing board. Or allow myself to come at it from a different angle. And everybody is different. And so for me, when I'm experiencing this or I'm looking for ideas or inspiration, I'll see what other people do. And again, I will I like this, but I would have done this or this differently. And in living with a fostering a creative mindset, I will allow those ideas happen. And I consciously almost have to tell myself, okay, turn off the filter, the no filter, and just, okay, this is an idea, this is an idea, this is an idea. And sometimes I'll write them down, sometimes I'll type it up, sometimes I'll try and draw little designs or something for it. But I'll just let all of those things happen inside of that creative time that I'm putting into paper or building or whatever it is that's happening.
The inspiration in various forms is important. I think it's the fuel of your creativity. That's what helps you to stay creative and be creative in different ways. So finding the different sources that are good for you, helping to ignite that creativity and keep you going, whether it's looking online at images or trying to recreate something that you saw someone else do. That is what we talked about earlier. You're actually doing something rather than sitting back and saying, oh man, I really wish I could do that. Okay, try your best to do that. You're actually going to be in the act of doing something that's going to hopefully ignite different ideas, and you can kind of, like you said, shut off your filter and just try to explore the different things that come to you as you're trying. But also at the end of the day, even if you end up still kind of stuck because I didn't identify the roadblock correctly, you were still doing the thing. So you got some practice in, and I don't think it can hurt to actually be engaged in it. It's going to be able to help you as well. So finding different sources of inspiration and engaging in those activities, whatever they may be, that help you to stay inspired is vital. It's key to staying inspired, which is, again, in turn going to fuel that creativity.
And for me, can end with this one. A practical tip, something that I have done for years now, is I do it a little bit differently now, but I used to keep a little notepad and pen in my pocket all the time. And if I saw something and that would make me think of something else, and I would just jot down a little idea. It would be kind of like my idea notebook. Sometimes I'd write to-dos in it or shopping list or something, but more often than not, it was my idea list. And I had a physical notepad I would have in my pants pocket. Had a little pin that would, it was a space pin. It folds in half, or not folds in half, but, makes it real small as it fits in the pocket. Write it down, little idea. Now, I think we talked about this before, but I use Notion for a lot of things. And so on my phone, on my iPad, on all my devices, I have like a quick note section where I can jot down an idea and just put it in there in Notion, and then I can leave it to sort into its specific location later on. But I think that having some way of jotting down a quick idea is essential. David Allen, the author of Getting Things Done, he mentions that your brain is not for storing ideas; it's for having ideas. And so your brain will come up with ideas, but you might think, oh yeah, I'll remember that later on, and then the time comes, and I'm sure you've done this. The time comes for you to actually remember whatever it was that you thought about earlier, and you can't remember it because your brain is really good at coming up with ideas, not so great at storing those ideas. And so my workaround for that is I would have some way that I can physically take that note down. Even on my watch, my Apple Watch, I think it's called Bear Notes, is the app, but I have a little thing that I can talk to create a note in that app. So that, again, I have that as an idea vault that just is there with me whenever I need it. If I have a spark of inspiration, instead of trying to remember or hope that I can remember later on, I know that I won't. So I just put that information down somewhere, and then I know later on that I have these various places that I can go to check in on those to see if there's any notes or ideas or creative inspiration that I can capitalize on for later on.
Yes, sir. I remember that notebook. Leather bound and beat up and well used.
It's in my pocket all the time. So again, this was our talk about creativity and specifically about overcoming creative blocks. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, be prestigious.